All right, today we're talking with a seasoned serial entrepreneur who is going to share about business, entrepreneurship, and some of the highs and lows of being, believe it or not, a fifth generation entrepreneur. His name is Michael Richman. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and you know that every week we feature smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies, and we've had Netflix, Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, lots of great episodes in the archives for you to check out. And of course, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast. We are the easy button for any company or organization to launch or run a podcast. We do three things: strategy, accountability, and full execution. In fact, we invented what some are calling the Wix of B2B podcasting. It's our platform, Podcast Copilot. So if you want to learn more, you can go to our website, rise25.com, or email our team at support@rise25.com. All right. I'm excited for today's guest. His name is Michael Richman. He is a professional EOS implementer with EOS Worldwide, but as I mentioned, also a fifth generation entrepreneur. That may be a record. I don't think I've had anyone that is a fifth generation entrepreneur before, so I'm really excited about it. He's had a number of different businesses over the years, including family businesses, before getting into doing EOS. And we also have Los Angeles in common. We were just chatting about that beforehand. But Michael, I want to hear some of these family stories. So first of all, was it your grandfather, your great grandfather?
So
knew this gangster, Meyer Lansky.
So my great grandfather owned a pool hall in the 1920s where the gangsters used to come, and my great grandmother worked in the pool hall. And one day, one of the gangsters came in and said, "I'm going to shoot this place up." And my great grandmother said, "Okay, we're out of this business." So they sold the pool hall, and my great grandfather's cousin was famous gangster Meyer Lansky, and it was during the time of Prohibition. And Meyer Lansky said, "Hey, we want to be able to get alcohol out into the community in a different way because it's illegal to just sell alcohol." So he put my great grandfather into the milk business, and we used to take canisters of milk and we would put alcohol into the canisters of milk and deliver those to speakeasies around New York City. And after Prohibition, became a legitimate business, and it was legitimate during that time as well, because we also delivered milk to legitimate businesses. But my family was in the business until the mid 90s, distributing milk to bodegas, markets in the Bronx, South Bronx.
When I was a kid, we got milk delivered. First, when I was living in suburban Massachusetts, where it was more of a thing, glass bottles and things like that. But then we moved to not too far from you, Calabasas in Southern California, and we continued to do it. I think my mom found the one guy who continued to deliver milk, and we had a container on the front. She just loved the novelty of it. Like, we didn't even need to do it anymore, but it was just so quaint, and it was so cool. Like, I guess once a week or something, like, these glass bottles would show up in a container outside your front door, and it was just kind of a fun thing to do.
Wouldn't it be great if there was still milk delivery?
I honestly think that this one guy, maybe like 15 years ago, as recently as 15 years ago, my parents were having it still done. Maybe 20 years ago. It was like way beyond when anyone else was doing it. I mean, the guy must have had just like a few customers left and, finally wrapped it up. So, all right. So that's how your parents got into this. And so you have multiple generations who were in entrepreneurship, who are entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And so actually the way I got into my business that I owned, and that I've exited from, is my father was working in the milk business, and he had all these cousins in the business and uncles and aunts. And he looked around and he said, "I'm never going to be able to own this business with so many people and so many family members around." And my great uncle, who was running the business at the time, said to him, "You're right. You should go and start your own business." And so my father came to California, and he met a lot of people, and he started telling them that he was looking for a business. And he was talking to an accountant, and the accountant said, "Hey, I have these clients who are looking for a partner. And currently they have a commercial tent business, tents for the Academy Awards, big tents. And they have a side business, which is awnings, awnings for Mrs. Jones's house and awnings for small restaurants and the dry cleaners and that type of thing. Would you be interested in this? So my dad went in there, worked for the company for a year and ended up then purchasing and becoming partners with these two gentlemen. And what he realized was there wasn't a real market to grow with doing awnings for Mrs. Jones's house. So he tried to turn around and make it a commercial business only, which is what he ended up doing. And so only awnings for restaurants, retail, big shopping centers, strip malls, those type of things.
So he did a couple of things that were challenging there. He moved from where he knew to a new place and then bought a new business, which was a portion of a different business. And then also, I imagine these things happened over years, not all at once, and then transitioned it to a new market.
Exactly. And he was very successful doing that. And that really laid a great groundwork for what we ended up growing it and building it into when I joined the company.
So you observed that, what are your memories of being a kid, and observing entrepreneurship, your parents in business or your grandparents in business? Did you observe this and think, oh, I want to be doing this one day? Did you observe it and think, man, that seems really stressful, I'm never going to do that?
I never thought that I would join the family business. I thought I was going to play shortstop for the Yankees. But when
But you grew up in LA. I was going to ask you about that. You're a big Yankees fan.
I am.
But you grew up in
Yankees
LA.
fan.
Why are you not a Dodgers fan?
Well, I grew up. My dad was a big Yankees fan. So what team were we rooting for? Yeah, what team were we rooting for? The Yankees.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even a choice for me. So I always thought I was going to be playing shortstop for the Yankees. So I never thought that I would join the family business. But my dad used to take me on sales calls with him. One specific memory that I remember about, and this is a lesson that I take about being aggressive, is Starbucks was just coming to Los Angeles and was just coming to California. And they were building a Starbucks and it was near our house. And the Starbucks was fenced off. And my dad looked at this and said, this chain might be a chain that we can go after for business. And I don't remember my age, but it couldn't have been that old. And I remember him and I jumped the fence because it was a Saturday or Sunday and looked for the name of the general contractor and the architect and found that and my dad ended up cold calling them, and Starbucks became a long-term client that was still a client the day we sold the business. Wow. We did every Starbucks in California, Alabama, Florida, and Hawaii.
Wow. And all because you jumped that fence.
All because we jumped that fence.
It's funny because now I got kids, you have kids, and sometimes if I do something that's a little bit, over the rules or outside of boundaries or against the law, I kind of think like, should I be doing this? But then you go tell this story about how this had this massive impact on you.
Oh, yeah.
That you guys trespassed, you hop over the fence, and it has this massive impact on you for the rest of your life.
Huge. Yeah. This was before the internet, before you could just look up who's the general contractor for Starbucks. Right. You had to find it out somewhere, somehow.
Right. So awning is such a specific niche to go after, one very specific thing. It's one of those businesses that you don't always think about, but probably for that reason, maybe has less competition.
Yeah, it was a specific niche, and then we even tried to niche it down even more. We became the go-to awning company for national restaurant chains, national retailers. We wanted to make their life easy. So one of my customers was Panda Express, and we did every Panda Express in the entire nation. And what I learned from working with Panda Express is they have so many things that they're worried about on a daily basis. The stoves, the ovens, the air conditioner, the toilets, all of this are things that they have to worry about constantly. Awnings is something they have to worry about every 3 years or 4 years. And so they wanted a vendor that they didn't have to think about it. They wanted a vendor where they could say, awnings, that's taken care of. Let me focus on making sure the cooktop's working so we could make our famous orange chicken, right? And so we tried to become that vendor, which we were very successful in doing, that vendor that Panda Express said, we don't have to worry, this awning company is going to take care of it. And that's who we became.
And because I'm thinking, like, how's it economical for them? Like, if they have a location in Brooklyn that needs a new awning, they're hiring a company out of Southern California. They got to fly out there and measure it, or how does that work out?
So we would work with local people. So there are local people there who would measure the awning, we'd make it, ship it off to them, and they'd install it for us. Or sometimes it was more economical for us to put our people on the airplane and send them out there to do it.
Got it.
It would just depend, but
Got it.
it would also allow them to know that there's a certain quality standard to all their units.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
really important as well.
By the way, I jumped over this, but I love to ask people about what they were like as a kid and, any lemonade stands, things like that they did. And you worked at a Jewish deli in Encino and learned a lot about human nature and customer service from that experience. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's as a child of older Jewish people, there's nothing more difficult than working in a Jewish deli and hearing complaints all day. Your food's not hot enough.
Yeah.
You put a tomato on my sandwich and you weren't supposed to.
Right.
And so you learn what it's like to take care of the customer
Yeah.
and make the customer happy. And that was one of the core values of our company, our awning company. But that was a lesson that I took to heart that, okay, I might think the matzo ball soup is warm. They don't think the matzo ball soup is warm. I could debate them over and over again, or I could just take the matzo ball soup back, warm the matzo ball soup, and make sure that the matzo ball soup is to a temperature that they like, and that's important. And that's something that's important to them. And that would make them so happy, the customers, that they keep coming back. And we'd have regular customers. John Wooden, for instance, was in there every single week. The famous UCLA coach, John Wooden. And
Cool.
so we had clients like that, and Pete Rose and Wilt Chamberlain would come in. And we had these people in our restaurant because we took care of it.
Mm, mm.
And it felt like a family. I call it our restaurant. I didn't own it. I worked there, but it felt like this was home.
Yeah.
And we made the customers feel that way.
Under the topic of restaurants in Southern California and celebrities, since you mentioned it, I worked at another restaurant in the San Fernando Valley, which we talked about earlier, Rosie's Barbecue Ribs. And the highlight of that experience was when Axl Rose came in one evening. And I mean, this is the early 90s. Like that was like the epitome for me. That was so exciting. He asked me some question. I don't even remember what it was, but I was so excited. So you had that experience. Now you end up, you actually worked for a number of years in the corporate world and you get your MBA. What point did you decide to go into the family business and you actually buy into the family awning business?
It's a great story. So I was working as a commercial banker, and I wanted to do that because I wanted to see how other businesses financed and what that whole model looked like. It allowed me to see a lot of different numbers and P&Ls. And I decided, okay, I'm going to go out and buy a business. And I thought I was going to buy a business that was actually adjacent to my family's business. And so I was looking in the sign industry, neon signs, LED signs, that type of thing. And I thought, okay, I'm going to buy this sign company and I'm going to be able to refer clients to the awning business. The awning business is going to be able to refer clients back to me. And I was in escrow, literally driving with the check to the company to pay. And the guy calls me on the phone and says, I decided I didn't want to retire. And you can't buy my company. And so I said, okay. So I was back to the drawing board. And
Probably done a lot of due diligence by that point.
A ton of due diligence, but deals fall apart, stuff happens. And so I went to my dad and I said, well, what do you think I should do here? And he said, well, why are you not joining this business? And I said, well, you have, partners. I don't want to work for them. And he said, well, why don't you make them an offer and see if you could buy them out? And so that's what I did. I bought half of the company. We were 50-50 partners.
And how did that go, being partners with your dad?
I think being 50-50 partners was key to it. And when I'm coaching people, it's something that I recommend because there was none of this, well, I'm 51, you're 49, so I'm going to override you. So we were able to make decisions together, hiring, firing, financing, purchasing new equipment. All of these decisions, we made them together because we were 50-50 owners. Now, of course, there were certain things that I knew better than him and that he knew better than me. He knew a lot about equipment, for instance, and trucks. And I knew a lot about the internet and website and SEO. And so we were able to balance each other out in that way, which I think made it a great partnership.
And it's kind of a classic case of, I don't know your dad's education or training was, but he had this practical experience, had run the business for a lot of years. And then you get an advanced degree, you got an MBA, you come in. Sometimes that creates a lot of tension though, right? The next generation comes in and you're book smart, kid, you don't know what you're doing.
What's funny is I got that from employees. There were some employees there that were long-term employees that remembered me as a 4-year-old running around.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it's hard now, all of a sudden, I have to tell these employees, you can do this, you can't do
Yeah.
this. Here's a
Yeah.
new policy.
I
And they're
changed your
like,
diaper, kid.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was a really big challenge. And one of the things that I felt that I had to do was prove myself. So I really wanted to land a big account and bring it into the company to show everybody that I wasn't just being given leads. And so I would read the business journal every week, looking for what are the trends, what are new companies coming in to California or expanding nationwide, that type of thing. And I saw that Family Dollar was coming to California and really doing a big expansion. And I called, just old fashioned, sent them letters, boots on the ground type of thing. And I finally made contact with the developer that was doing all the Family Dollars in California and I believe Arizona. And I said, who's your awning vendor? And they said, we don't have one. And I was able to land that as an account. And we did every Family Dollar. I think now they were bought out by Dollar General, so I don't even know anymore if they exist. But
Yeah, I
at
was gonna
that
say
time,
I don't know that I've seen a lot around California.
yeah, but at
Yeah.
that time they were
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
And so we were able to do all those stores and it was a big rollout and it was meaningful for me because now all of a sudden these people that saw me as this kid or as this, son that was brought to run the business and doesn't really know what he's doing, has a golden spoon in his mouth, now brought in a big account that we can all work on.
Did that meet its objective? In other words, did
Yes.
it get you the respect that you were hoping for?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And we really expanded. The other thing that we did in our business is we really expanded into the world of poolside cabanas for
Mhm.
hotels and resorts,
Mm.
custom poolside cabanas. And
And
so,
that was a new area.
yeah, I mean, we'd been doing some of it, but we really took it to the next level after I joined the company. And one of the things that I did was bring in some wholesale accounts. And that really took the company to a new volume of cabanas that we were sending out every year because I all of a sudden now had salespeople in all 50 states that were pushing my cabanas.
Yeah.
So, whereas if I hired salespeople internally, it was going to be hard for them to get to the apartment building in Iowa and sell one cabana. But now all of a sudden I had somebody that was selling other products that would go in there and sell our cabanas as well. So we're shipping to Iowa and Nebraska and places that you would traditionally not think a poolside cabana would go.
Yeah. Now, over the last 20, 30 years, especially in Southern California, but also nationwide, the manufacturing world has changed a lot, and real estate in Southern California is not that inexpensive. So did you get experience pressure of, do we outsource our manufacturing? Do we move our manufacturing to somewhere else? How did you handle that? Or did you continue manufacturing in Southern California?
We manufactured everything in Southern California. And I'll tell you, one of the nice things about our product was it couldn't be offshored. So everything we did was custom. So I mentioned Panda Express. Though you, with your naked eye, would tell me, oh, every Panda Express looks the same. And to a certain extent, that's true. But an awning on a Panda Express might be 6'5" in one town, and in another town, it might be 6'4.5". And that half of an inch might not seem like a lot to everybody, but it is very important to make sure that it fits. So,
especially if rain comes pouring down
right,
through
exactly.
that gap.
So to offshore something like that is impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's how we started our, really growing to the next level is we said we can take care of this anywhere and the manufacturing can't be offshored.
Yeah.
It just can't be. It's not feasible.
Of course, that's the pro. The con is doing everything custom, everything bespoke creates challenges of scale, challenges of, trying to do something once and do it over and over again.
Yeah. The nice thing though with our business is, and maybe not nice, but fabric fades. So I do a Panda Express and
eventually they need it replaced.
They need it replaced.
Yeah.
And so then we had the measurements, we had the drawing, so we could just take that drawing and go, okay, this is the Panda Express in Concord, California. Let's just remake it.
Yeah. So less expensive the next time for you to manufacture it. Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of files with different restaurants and different retailers showing what we built.
It's almost like a subscription business.
Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't think, but it almost is.
Yeah.
Did you, and you had either a company that you acquired in San Francisco, Northern
Yeah,
California?
we
Okay.
acquired we had an awning company in San Francisco that we acquired that had been doing awnings for a long time, and we did some pretty famous locations. So the ferry terminal, I think I mentioned to you,
Yeah, oh yeah, the ferry building. That's cool.
downtown
Beautiful. Yeah.
Macy's,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and what else did we? Burlington Coat Factory downtown. So a lot of
Uh-huh.
pretty well-known Levi's storefront. So a
Uh-huh.
lot of pretty well-known locations.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like? Was that something that you drove? Was that how did you
Yeah,
end up acquiring this company?
we thought it would be great to have coverage up in the Bay Area because we
Hmm.
were doing a lot of stuff all over the country, but especially in California, obviously being a California-based company, and so it allowed us to have crews that were up in San Francisco that were measuring the jobs, and we were able to then make them and get them up there, and so it just allowed us to cover the state in a bigger way. We did a lot of stuff in Central California too. So it was a situation where can we send a truck to Central California? Can we send a truck from LA? Do we send the truck from San Francisco? Which is better? And it really gave us some great coverage.
Now, most people that eventually get into EOS implementation have some story behind, they realized in running the business that they were running ragged, they were exhausted, or they were fighting with family members and they realized people were sitting in the wrong seats on the bus, so to speak. Is there any story like that behind what drew you to EO and what drew you to EOS?
Yeah, so I'll tell the story of being drawn to EO, and then that's how I got into EOS. But my best friend worked for me, and she was a salesperson for us. And we were driving. I could tell you, we were on the 5 freeway and driving up to Glendale. And she said to me, "Michael, you're living in a vacuum." She said, "Every day you're eating lunch with your dad. You're not talking to other business owners. You're not getting better as a business person, and your business isn't growing the way it should be." And I was like, "Okay, that's a slap in the face, but what do you think I should do?" And she said, "You should join a peer group." And I said, "Okay." And I went home and I researched peer groups and I thought there might be something to this. So I ended up applying and joining EO. And once I was in EO and in a forum, and for those who don't know, a forum is a peer group, a smaller peer group of about 8 to 10 different people in the chapter. I was complaining about my business and saying, we're not growing, we're not going where I want to be. I wanted to scale it and sell it. And somebody handed me the book Traction and they said to me, read this. And I said, I've read every business book under the sun. I've had consultants. I've had all these people come in. I don't want another consultant who has a book. And they said, just read it. It's simple. It's different than anything you've seen before. So I read it and I saw the simplicity in it. And I started implementing it in the company. And you're able to see changes. And one of the tools that I like to talk about where we saw a change immediately was with our scorecard. We weren't measuring anything. We had no KPIs, nothing like that. And all of a sudden, implementing EOS, we had KPIs. And we had a sewer who worked for us for 20 years. And their main KPI, their measurable, whatever term you want to use for it, was how many rejects they were getting out of the sewing department. And we figured, okay, our goal is to have 98% good, 2% bad. Well, all of a sudden, all the sewers had 98, 99, 100%. We had one sewer who was at 60%. And she'd worked for us for the business for 20 years. So we thought, what is going on? So the sewing manager and the production manager call her in and they say, hey, we're now measuring this stuff and we see that you're at a level that's below what we need. And she said, look, I've wanted to retire for 5 years. I know that I can't keep up with it. I just didn't know how to tell you. And so it's just what it does, EOS, is it turns the light on and it allows you to see things in a different way that you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Mm, mm. Did you realize anything about the role that you sat in on the bus or in the company or your father?
Yeah, I mean, I realized that I was definitely an integrator and I wasn't the visionary. I wasn't the person coming up with the big ideas and that type of thing. And so I think it allowed me to keep a better pulse on the business. I also think figuring out which people should be in which seats. I had a project manager that I joke around, but it's true. He couldn't manage his way out of a paper bag, but he was a great designer. And so we were able to move him into the design realm and give him a design position rather than giving him this position of project manager. And it changed everything for our company because now we are getting these amazing designs and we weren't having a project manager who was falling down on his responsibilities.
What point did you decide that you wanted to actually go pursue this work and help others with it?
I think after we sold the company, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a 1-year earnout and I said, do I want to work full time? Do I want to work part time? Do I want to go work for someone else? What's the next step for me? And I decided that I loved EO and I loved some of the roles that I took in EO, such as coaching an EOA group and serving as forum moderator. And when I would coach EOA groups, I found myself, and for those that don't know, EOA is part of the EO organization for companies that are under $1 million. And I would find myself sharing EOS tools. Hey, here's an accountability chart. And I would start coaching on those things. And I realized that's because those are the things that work. Those are the tools that actually will change people's businesses. And so I started coaching on those and I said, wait a second, if I'm coaching on those in EOA, why not make this a business? And so that's what I ended up doing, was making it a business.
And we kind of glanced over this, but you ended up selling the family business. Was that challenging to do? We talked at the beginning of this interview about that your family has been in entrepreneurs for so long, and to finally sell this family business, not pass it on to the next generation, that must have been challenging to come to that realization.
Well, I think it's because my daughters want to play shortstop for the Yankees.
Well, maybe they'll make it. Yeah. This is the generation.
Yeah, exactly. But in all seriousness, well, first, I want to say I met the people who bought my business through EO. So again, EO means a lot to me. Without EO, I would definitely be in a different place. But there's some parts that are very emotional about selling a business. This is your baby. This is what you raised. And it's really hard to do the 1-year earnout because now somebody else is kind of taking your baby and they're doing their own thing with it. And you may agree with the things that they're doing and you may not agree with the things that they're doing, but it's at the end of the day, their decision to make. And it's really hard to sit there and say, this is their decision to make. It's not your decision to make anymore. And they're going to run the company the way that they do. But my father wanted to retire, which he's happily retired and travel. And I thought it was time for me to do something different.
Yeah. I want to ask you about, you stepped into this role of leadership. You're going to be president of the EO Los Angeles chapter, 200 plus entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs. It's not an easy role to step into. Talk to me a little bit about the decision to do that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, this organization means everything to me. And I think that the theme of my year is own your experience. And why is it the theme of my year? Because I owned my experience. I put myself out there. And I feel like if people put themselves out there, this organization is going to return even more to them. But you have to put yourself out there. You have to go meet people. And that's what I did. And I want to translate that to everybody in this chapter and to new members, that own your experience. It's a carry your own bag organization. But if you go out there and you carry your own bag and you own your experience, the returns are going to be infinite. Without EO, I would have never been introduced to Traction. I would have never been introduced to the people who bought my business. I would have never met friends and colleagues and people that I'm going to know for the rest of my life. It just wouldn't have happened. And I want to translate that throughout our chapter.
Yeah, I can see all the passion in that. This has been great, Michael. I'd love to share where people can go to connect with you, learn more about what you do, and learn about your EOS implementation worker.
Sure. The best way to get in touch with me is via my website. It's my name, Michael Richman, Michael, Richman, RICHMAN.me. So michaelrichman.me, again, MICHAEL,
Excellent, Michael. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.